Once upon a time, nestled between two great mountains, there lay a forest unlike any other in the world. This forest, known as the Sapphire Forest, was home to trees whose trunks and leaves shimmered with a radiant blue glow. The trees grew tall and strong, their branches stretching toward the heavens. Their bark, smooth and reflective like glass, was said to contain a magic unlike any known to humankind. The Sapphire Forest was a place of mystery and reverence, for it was said that the sap of the trees granted visions of the past. This magical substance, when touched, would show glimpses of forgotten times, visions that swirled around those who sought them like a veil, offering secrets lost to history. Yet few dared to enter the forest, for it was surrounded by an aura of silence, as though the very air was holding its breath. Legends spoke of a young woman named Sylva, who had grown up in a village on the edge of the Sapphire Forest. She was known for her deep curiosity, a trait that often led her to explore the world around her. While others spoke of the forest in hushed tones, Sylva found herself drawn to it, captivated by its beauty and the stories it held. The villagers warned her to stay away, for many had gone into the forest seeking the past and none had returned unchanged. But Sylva's heart burned with the desire to understand the mysteries that lay hidden within. One day, Sylva made up her mind. She gathered her belongings, tied her hair back, and set out toward the Sapphire Forest. As she walked beneath the towering blue trees, the air seemed to shimmer with an ethereal glow, and the silence was profound. Every step she took felt like a journey through time itself, each footfall soft against the moss-covered ground. The deeper she ventured into the forest, the more she felt the weight of its ancient magic. The trees whispered with the wind, their leaves rustling in patterns that seemed to form a language of their own. Soon, she found herself standing before the largest of all the trees, its trunk wide and gnarled, its blue bark streaked with silver veins. Sylva reached out, her fingers trembling as they brushed against the tree's bark. The moment her skin made contact, a rush of images flooded her mind, vivid and overwhelming. She saw a woman, her face radiant and full of hope, standing by the forest's edge long before Sylva was born. She saw a child, dark-eyed and innocent, running through the forest's undergrowth. She saw a battle, fierce and tumultuous, fought between forces of light and shadow. The images swirled around her like a storm, and for a moment she lost herself in them. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the vision faded. Sylva blinked and found herself back in the forest, her hand still resting on the tree. The quiet had returned, but the world felt different now, as though she had glimpsed something profound that could not easily be forgotten. She continued her journey through the forest, drawn further by the promise of more visions. With each tree she touched, more fragments of the past were revealed to her. She saw the founding of the village, how the people had come from distant lands to seek refuge in the embrace of the Sapphire Forest. She saw the rise of a great ruler whose kingdom had once stretched far and wide, only to fall to ruin in a time long past. She saw the faces of those who had lived and loved in these lands, their hopes and dreams now lost to time. As Sylva ventured deeper into the forest, she began to understand the true power of the sapphire trees. They were not merely conduits to the past, they were the guardians of memory itself. Each tree held the memories of the world, each sapdrop a moment in time that had been captured forever. The forest was a living history, and those who sought to touch it were given the gift and the burden of remembering. But the forest was also a place of sorrow. As the trees grew older, the memories they held grew heavier. Some of the visions Sylva saw were not filled with hope or light, but with pain and loss. She saw the sorrow of those who had loved and lost, the tears of those who had fought for justice only to see it slip away. The forest, though beautiful, was also a keeper of grief. The deeper Sylva wandered, the more she felt the weight of these memories. Her heart grew heavy as she saw the fall of kingdoms and the tears of mothers who had lost their children. She saw the turning of seasons, the dying of the forest itself as the blue trees began to wither and fade. As the sun began to set, Sylva found herself standing in the heart of the forest, surrounded by the oldest trees, their leaves darkening to a deep indigo. In this sacred place she saw the final vision, a vision of the forest's end. She saw the moment when the last tree would fall, its blue light dimming forever, and with it the memories of the past would vanish, leaving behind only silence and shadow. Sylva understood then the Sapphire Forest was not eternal. Its magic, though powerful, was fading, just as all things must. But she also understood that the forest had a purpose: to preserve the past so that future generations could remember. It was a reminder that history, though fleeting, was something worth cherishing. As night fell, Sylva stood in the stillness, feeling the weight of the forest's ancient magic. She knew it was time to leave, to return to her village and share the knowledge she had gained. But the forest would stay with her forever, its blue trees and their memories etched into her heart. She would carry their stories, the joy and sorrow of the past, into the future. And so Sylva left the Sapphire Forest, her footsteps light on the path that led home. The forest, now silent once more, stood as it had for centuries, its blue trees quietly watching over the land, holding the past in their sap, and waiting for the next soul, brave enough to seek its wisdom. The Sapphire Forest remained, a place of magic and memory, waiting for those who would come to learn the stories of what had been and what could never be forgotten. And so the legend lived on,